Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video and the final video for Heroes Jubilee 37, Boss Battle 2, the single target stage against Hinata. Now, this fight is a lot easier for most people because Hinata doesn't give herself any magic resistance. And so, if you have the Visions of Coleus team, you can do really good damage. Not as good as, the current Primal Demon team, of course, but you can do some solid millions of damage with that team, because they have 2 single-target space nukers. So that is very, very nice, and at least they didn't restrict this stage to that. But the other thing is that she does have 2 turns where she changes all your orbs to green. So if you don't have Diablo, and you don't have a way to get around that, you're kinda SOL for those 2 turns. So you're going to have to pay attention and plan ahead for that. But other than that, she doesn't really hit that hard. Boss battles normally don't. And the starting hand is built for Diablo, 3 greens. There are ways around it that, I'll show you, but, good luck. Let's go ahead and jump in. Alright, so of course, starting out, we're using the meta as it exists. So Violet, Misery, Diablo, Visions of Coleus, Jean, new Jean, and new Blanc. We have our turn 2 protection gauge characters with both Jean and Mirai, or Murin if you have her. That works too. That's to prioritize that we get 2 stacks of the protector on turn 2. We're using the protection gauge trio, not the skill point one, so we're going for that kind of RNG turn 2 for extra power. But I kind of forget to hit record until turn 2, so when we jump in, it's already kind of going. So here we are. We're already a turn in. We've sent the full hand of greens because we used Diablo's orb change turn 1, and now we're left with, on turn 2, with a good Misery orb change, 2 stacks of Violet, and we're ready to go. So we'll just continue from here. And it's pretty standard. I also make a few misplays here. I forget to use maybe a stack or 2 of Blanc's buff when we have the points for it, but otherwise it's not a bad run by any means. It's a fairly good run, and it gets me my current highest score, but I haven't really come back to try it, to be perfectly honest with you. But as long as we can get good RNG, and we don't have to use every single orb change every single turn ever, then it'll look decent. And this fight, again, like I said earlier, does have 2 turns that are guaranteed greens. Hinata goes and changes them automatically, which means that we only need to use 1 orb change, 2 turns, which makes my life actually a whole lot easier. So, ideally, you're going to want 2 EX alts. 1 with Blanc, 1 with Earth Jean, not Space Jean. Because even though she has type advantage, she's not going to get that physical buff from Diablo, that 100%. And that means that Earth Jean will hit much, much harder. Even though Space Jean is type advantage and there is no space resistance on the stage, here's that full green turn, and we only have to use 1 orb change. That's very nice. But back on topic, Earth Jean will hit harder. So it's better to prioritize these 3 units, Diablo, Blanc, Jean, because Diablo, his AoE ult, it won't be an EX. If you can get an EX, then cool, but not necessary. More importantly, though, he gives extra pierce power for the 2 other units, and that's what we're really looking for on his ult. And then Jean, and then Blanc obviously will be the big time nuker because of all her personal buffs, right? So we just have to get to that point. We need orbs for people, and I think the biggest thing I hate about this team is just a single alt swapper. I would have much rather had Misery do something else than the single alt swap, and given that to Diablo or something. I don't know. I don't know how I would change his team around, but I wish it was better. Which, makes sense. It is the pre-2.5 anniversary bait meta, and they baited hard with waifus. I understand it. People summon for it. I summon for it. Blanc and Jean are hot. But, I'm going to do the tier list after I'm done recording this, and I don't know how high they're going to go, honestly, because they are all very much replaceable or not very good outside of their own teams. But hey, the point of this video is Jubilee. We are on turn, 6 right now, and we need EX alts. So we're orb changing, boom, we have enough points to use more stats. So another alt gauge increase in attack buff for Blanc, plus the alt damage and pierce. And this gets us very, very close to 2 EX alts. And Diablo should already have an alt in the back. And there is another guaranteed hand of green right there. And we get very lucky that the incoming orb is blue. So we can alt swap here with these two, bring Diablo in, use his orb change, and then send him away. And that will pull in that future blue orb, and we'll have an entire hand. And we have enough points to do that exactly, almost. So you come in, orb change, boom, and then you come out, we'll pull that other blue Blanc orb in, and this hand will get us the 2 EX alts that we're looking for. Boom. Plus, all the points that we could ever ask for. But also in this hand, we make a decision, this incoming turn 8, because we have 3 oranges, right? So now the question is, do we use the reset with Jean with Misery up front so we can get a full hand, or do we just forego it and just bring Diablo up front and maybe get a few more stacks of the alt buff on Blanc? I decide, after thinking about it, to bring Misery up front. So let's skip to that. Yeah, right here. So I bring Misery up front. We're going to use the skill reset plus the 300 extra points. I don't want to use any of the other buff, though. So now we'll use the orb change. That's 20 back down to 25. I don't use the other buffs because I want Diablo to get the element resistance and all that and everything. So now we do the stacks. And now we can use Diablo's buff, Jean's buff, and then whatever else we have left over is going to go towards Blanc's primary damage buff, the alt and the pierce power. And whatever points we have left over after that, we can put into her personal attack buff. But that skill is much less impactful because it is not double buffing an attack skill, and it's also not buffing anybody else. Like, the alt gauge is universal. Everybody's getting that. The personal alt buff we were able to use 2 more times, so we're looking good. So Diablo does 793. Respectable. Okay, fine. It's an AoE. And then Jean does 2.5 million. Also pretty good. And then Blanc, with all of her personal buffs, does 10 million. Alright, let's cut that back. Yeah, 10.6 million damage. So that's very, very nice to see. And then because we have a full hand of blues, she does a lot of damage on a 200% orb. 48k, 97k, and then the final hit, 816,000 damage on that 200% orb. So we're just shy of 16 million for the meta run. And, it could be better. It could be worse. But I'm pretty happy with the score. Maybe I'll come back and try it because I have like 300 tickets left over. But that is the full meta team and how it's supposed to be run. And also, you could get a Diablo EX ult, and that would help too. But let's move on. Alright, again, bringing Visions of Coleus, because now we have 2 single-target Space Nukers, and this stage does not have magic resistance. Or does it seal synergy? You still can't crit it, but you can at least get synergy, which means that we have access to all of our power, essentially. So it's the same exact team as we used for Boss Battle 1. Nothing different is to be done here. You want 2 EX alts with Violet and Jean, and then maybe an alt with Blanc if you can fit it in. We do have Rimuru here, again, for the Rainbow Orbs. It's just that now we don't really have a super great way to take care of turn 1, turn 3, or turn 7. Turn 4, turn 7. Where, where Hinata changes all the orbs to green. You really need some luck to get around that. But here, we got pretty lucky with that hand. Boom. I do want to leave you in, so we're just going to use Violet's orb change. And then we'll bring Blanc in. And then we'll do this. And, we're doing good damage. Again, we have super weak point, or not super weak point, we have weak point extra damage versus wind characters because of how this team is built and what Lumi is doing. And it's very nice. And again, not having magic resistance is good. I didn't realize I made a cut there. So hold on, let's go back in. Let's go a little further. Alright, so turn 2, actually, we got pretty lucky, and we got a full hand of natural blues. So we just rainbowed again, like we did on Boss Battle 1. So that worked out fairly well. So now we have extra points, we have extra stacks, looking pretty good. And now things are a little bit interesting. We'll use both orb changes there. We can bring Blanc in. We have enough points to use her alt swap ability. And we're already set for a lot of gauge for Jean, who is our primary damage dealer, because she's got the personal buff as well. But, because she's set, we're actually going to take her out. Because we don't need to, leave her in. We've got many, many more turns to get her more gauge. And here is the full hand of greens. Doesn't really work out too well for us, but we'll alt swap here, and then now's the decision. Like, what are we going to do? Do we orb change with Violet to get the 1, and then bring Rimuru in, and then use Albus? We certainly have enough points to do it. It's going to be a lot of playing around and figuring what you want to do. So I think here, if I want to use Violet, it has to change Blanc. Thankfully it did, and now we're pretty much set. So we'll use one more stack on at least Violet and Blanc here. We'll bring Rimuru in for Violet. We'll use his personal buff, or personal orb change, and then we have enough to use Albus, and there we go. We were able to get around it. It wasn't very pretty, but we were able to do it because of the orb placement and how lucky we got with that single orb change for Violet's convert. Here, we also get lucky because we can just use Reamer's thing again and then bring Violet in. So boom. Awesome. And then, she needs more gauge, so she needs to come in for Rimuru. And Jean, because she doesn't need that much, will come in for Albus. Boom. And then you, alt swap, orb change, and God, this team runs so much better. This team won't do as much damage, but it runs so much better than the Primal Demon team, just because of special converts and the rainbow orbs. But, we can actually synergy now too, which means that we are getting more and more damage as time goes on. Got a good orb change right there, and a good alt swap. So, I'm liking this run. We do actually a lot of damage with this team. A lot of damage. More than you would probably think that we would do here. But Jean comes out. We don't need her. We need more orbs for Violet. Now we have her EX alt, so we're looking pretty good. And we have one more turn after this to stack. And there is the next hand of greens. But because of how it worked out, we are able to work around it. Kind of. Violet has her EX alt. Blanc can alt swap these two away. We do need to still think about it, so I think I make a cut here again somewhere. Jean has her EX alt, so that's fine. I'm just trying to decide who and what needs to come in and out to get the maximum amount of points that I need to do. So, yeah, okay, so there's the alt swap right there. And then you will come in for Blanc, we'll change those, and then we'll use Albus's orb change. And that will give us another full hand of blues. Where again, we only can use the attack stack on Violet now, which is unfortunate, very much so. But it is the lesser of two evils. We could have kept Blanc in and used it on her as well. It is what it is. Again, improvements can be made. But hey, we got a full hand of blues on both turns where they were all greens. That, I think, is very impactful. But we are not able to get an alt for Blanc, which is unfortunate. But again, improvements can be made. So here, one final stack of Lumi, and then we'll use all the buffs, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to nuke. And we're going to do pretty decent damage, for all things said and done. So 1, 2, and then we'll send the Jean orbs. Violet does 4.5 million. 4.5 million. That's pretty good. Next up, Jean does 4.5 million, because remember, Violet has gotten a few more extra stacks of Lumi than Jean, because Jean's been in the back for a while. So if you were able to stack, normally, Jean would do more damage, because she has that personal synergy buff. And then normal orbs, 238, 258k, and we do 10 million. 10 million damage with the second anniversary team. That, I think, is very impressive, fairly good, and almost 300,000 points on Boss Battle 2 is certainly nothing to scoff at if you don't have the brand new meta. So that works out very, very well. And now it's time to use teams that don't work so well. Okay, so let's pretend that you pulled for Blanc because she's hot, right? I understand that. But you don't have anybody else. So you gotta use what you got, and this is what you got. Fount of Wisdom Diablo, making a return again. Now we're doing single targets. We got Orb Changers, Water Rimuru, free to play. Water Shuna, very old. Summer Shizu, honestly, not very necessary. She's here for the alt swap and the weakness strike. it is what it is. Raphael, Light Raphael is here. He's a very good unit still, to this day, technically. And he is also going to do two things. Is one, put more ult resistance down on the enemy, and two, activate Blanc's Pierce, because Blanc is stacking ult damage and Pierce power, and we need someone to actually give her Pierce rate, which Raphael can do. You know, there are other units that can also give Pierce. You don't need to bring Raphael. He's just doing double duty, essentially. And then, obviously, Blanc is Blanc. She's got her own stacking buffs. You can't use a lot of them, because we're not on a team that allows you to use multiple skills a single turn. But, you know, it still technically works out where she is the primary DPS character, and we're going to make her a primary DPS character. It's just that now, again, without Diablo, and even without Visions of Coleus Rimuru, you are very hard-pressed to get an EX ult for her, unless you get a lot of orbs. And turn, 4 and turn 7 are legitimately awful, unless you get very, very lucky. So here, we get lucky, you know, we again forget to use the buffs on turn 1, because I'm an idiot, but we can still orb change into a full hand of blues. That gets us 82 points, plus 2 stacks of Diablo. You know, fair enough, it is what it is. We're only really going to be nuking with Blanc. Anything else, any other single target ults are not going to do that much damage. You can attempt to go for Light Raphael if you want, and maybe use his Stun Strike, or you can go for Summer Shizu, but I mean, she's not really getting anything out of it either, except an ult buff. So, but full hand of blues, again, looking pretty good. We'll use both stacks, or just one stack? Just one stack, because I don't want to get too much ult gauge, because I only have a single ult swapper in this team, which is my issue with the Primal Demon team, is there's only one single ult swapper. And I don't want to get it for everybody. And honestly, if you do, you just let it work. But here, very, very lucky on this turn. We have 4 Shizu, 2 Blanc, so that means Water Rimuru can come in and just change all of it, and we can be, you know, happy and stuff. We'll use 2 more stacks of Blanc's buff, and then we'll send Water Rimuru away to keep him in the back. And that's pretty much what you're banking for if you're going to run this type of team, is you're really hoping for those green turns to work out in your favor. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult, and you just have to send the greens and just deal with at least 2 lost turns. But we are getting very lucky. We can just use Water Rimuru again. We can swap Shuna out because we have another blue orb incoming, so there's no harm in that. And we'll just use the single alt swap with Shizu, and we'll have a full hand of blue again. So we're looking pretty good. You're not going to do amazing amounts of damage with this team, obviously. It's not the meta. It doesn't have super powerful buffs. But, you know, at least you are using hot waifu number 1, Blanc. So, and we crit there, which you don't want to crit. You do not want to crit with this team. She has Hanada has 100% crit resistance. Does not bode well for you. But we're still getting pretty lucky with these orbs, so we can take Raphael out for Water Rimuru, boom, use another alt swap, and more. After this hand, it's going to be another full turn of greens, so, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. We're actually going to take Water Rimuru out to prepare for that, and we're going to send this alt. We do have an EX alt for Blanc now, which is nice, and an alt for Shizu, also nice. So that's 2 orbs that are guaranteed to be not greens. And then, boom, there we go. We already have the EX alt for Blanc, so we don't really need her up front for anything now. So, you know, depending on how many points you have, you can make this specific turn work. Now, I had to think about it for a second, because it's not pretty, right? Blanc doesn't need to be here, so we can take her out for Rimuru. And that will give us 3 guaranteed orbs that can be blue because of Rimuru. And then we can use the single alt swap, and then Rimuru's other orb change and Shuna's orb change, because it's cheap. And that will get us a full hand with 35 points left over. So we couldn't have used really anything else anyways. But we get another full hand of blues, which just gets enough points and another stack of Diablo. It gets us barely enough points, actually, I think, if I remember. This hand could have been better, but it's not terrible. So we'll use the alt buff now. We also don't have an alt or an orb with Shuna, which means we can't bring Raphael in for his actual alt. He can still come in and support, but it is unfortunate. But Blanc's coming in for Rimuru. Raphael comes in for Shuna, because we've already used her buff. We use the weakness strike here, and we'll use the orb change, because we have enough points, because we only need to use 2 skills right here, plus some. So, boom, boom. We don't need to stun here, right? There's no point in stunning. We're not stacking Stun Strike or anything. So we'll just use that, and then one more stack of Blanc's alt buff, and we send a full hand of blues. So Shizu, 144k, not great. Blanc, 1.5 million. You know, it's okay damage. It's not 10 million. It's not 18 or 16 million, but it is, you know, a million, right? And then the final orb does 72k, which puts our final score at 2 million, just above 2. So, you know, it's not terrible. It's not super great, though. It is an option, though, if you happen to have some of the older units and brand new Blanc. Alright, the final team. Doesn't even have a space unit on it. It's fine, though, right? Because all we need to do is damage. And an old team that can do damage still is the Light 3.0 team, because it's double stacking effects, Stun Strike, and Pierce Power. And you definitely want to Pierce this stage, and you can stun this stage. So we brought almost a full Light team. We didn't bring any other EX character besides Light Blanc. If you don't have her, sorry, bring someone else. But Protector Shuna is still decent. Light Milim, Orb Changing. Water Shuna, again, the alt buff and the Orb Changing. Raphael, Lumi are going to be the primary DPS characters here, because they will get the extra 40% stun strike from Raphael being skill fused. Blanc is here just for some funsy onesie damage. Not that big of a deal. She's not going to get all of the different buffs. But you can make this work. It has decent orb changing. It has decent support skills. And you can do something with it. It won't be as much as, you know, the other team, but it's still certainly something. And you still can't deal with turn 1. So you're in the same boat as you are for the other team, where, you know, this turn 4, turn 7 is going to be up to RNG. But RNG likes us today. A full natural hand of blues. So we don't even have to use any skills here. So we got a double stack of Shuna. Make sure to stack it on Lumi and Raphael. Blanc is optional. Again, she's not going to get that extra stun strike, or any stun strike actually, because she's not on New Year's Blessing or Otherworld Legend. So she'll be missing out. That's why she's optional. Like, any damage you can get with her is cool. She'll still have an alt buff. Maybe she'll have a light buff. Actually, she won't have a light buff. Actually, no, she will have a light buff. So she can do something. And we also don't need EX alts for everybody, right? I'm not looking for an EX alt with Blanc. It'd be cool if we can get it, but I want to make sure we get alts for Lumi and Raphael more than anything else. So full hands of blues are the game. 172 points, another stack of Raphael, looking fairly good. And now we're going to come to the terrible, terrible hand, but it did work out for us surprisingly well. So Milim can come in after we use Blanc's alt swap. Now we can bring her in for Blanc, change all those 3 greens, and then we can use Lumi to change the other 2. So both of these runs we've gotten fairly lucky with the full hand of green turns. And we are able to convert it away. And we can get all orbs for, you know, the people that actually matter on this team. So we got a natural Pierce there. Again, Pierces are good. I mean, we've been stacking the Pierce power the entire time. Just don't want to crit. No crits. So here we got 2 stacks of Shuna. We'll put them on. The hands look a bit interesting, but we already have an alt for Lumi, which means she doesn't really need to be up front anymore, except to get those stacks. So we can swap her out for Milim. Boom. Take care of those orbs. Use the Shuna convert. There's another full hand of blues. We'll bring Blanc in for Milim. Keep her in the back for, you know, the orb changing. And then that's 3 orbs for Blanc, which gets her, you know, closer and closer to an EX alt. 4,000, 4,500. Yeah, we're doing equivalent damage. That's a hand right there. So we have 3 turns left. The next turn is going to be that full hand of greens again. So we'll bring Blanc in for Shuna. We'll use the alt swap. We'll use the orb change, and then we'll kind of just run with it. So boom, boom. Full hand of blues. Perfect. We'll get the stack on all 3 of them, and then we leave it, because I want to leave Milim in the back so we can convert things properly if luck agrees with us. And I believe it does. You know, so that's, what, 4 different times that it works out for us? You know, we have 3 alts taking up a lot of space, which is definitely working in our favor. So 2 more stacks. Boom. We'll do the alt swap again. We'll use the orb change for Lumi, and then we'll just take out whoever doesn't need it for Milim. And that's the full hand of blues. But now we gotta pay attention, because we need to make sure that both Raphael and Lumi are the ones getting the primary number of buffs. So we need to take out Lumi, obviously, for Milim, and convert that. So she's going to be in the back. Which means we also have to take out Blanc, because again, we want to prioritize Raphael and Lumi getting all of the buffs, not Blanc. So we have to leave Milim up front. So here, full hand of blues, gets us the points, gets us another stack, and more importantly, now we can use the alt buff for free, send her away for Lumi, and still have both of the New Year's units getting all the buffs. All the buffs. Not most of the buffs, all the buffs. So there's the alt buff, boom. Lumi will come in now for Shuna. And then we'll use the Milim buff, the extra attack, and then the light resistance down. And then Milim will come out, and then we'll have Blanc up front, and then we'll use everything else. So there's the attack buff. The weakness strike buff from Blanc actually does not matter here, because we're not type advantage, we're type neutral. So honestly, you didn't even really have to use that skill. I just use it anyways, just in case. We're also going to stun, because we have to stun. And then we'll send everything. If we didn't use the Blanc buff, we could have used an orb change with Shuna. 198k because we crit, unfortunately. 290 with Blanc. And Raphael, 749. Which means that, you know, if Lumi hadn't crit, she also would have done around 700k. Which means we would have done over 2 million damage again. So, unfortunate that Lumi got that crit. But there's not much we can do about it, so let's check it out. How much damage did we do? Again, so Lumi... Yeah, 198. That's how much it took us down. From 700-ish K to 198. It's not great. Wait, did Blanc crit too? Hold on. Crit Pierce. Blanc? No, just Pierce, 290. And then Raphael, yeah, does 749. So there we go. We're ending at 1.5 million. So there we go. Didn't even have a space character. Still did, you know, an okay score. You got an S rank out of it, I guess, is the most important thing. But there's 4 teams that can take on Boss Battle 2 of Heroes Jubilee 37. That's going to do it for me, and now it's all up to you guys and whatever your boxes will allow you to do. That's it for me. Take it easy, and I will see you all later.